January 1536. Kimbolton Castle, England. A woman lies on her deathbed. She is cold, sick, and utterly alone. The king has forbidden her from seeing her own daughter. She is Queen Catherine of Aragon. Or rather, she was queen. Henry VIII has stripped her of her title, taken away her household, and exiled her from court. But she refuses to surrender. Even on her deathbed, she writes one final letter to the man who destroyed her life. She calls him, "My most dear lord and husband." After everything he did, the humiliation, the betrayal, the years of isolation, she still refuses to acknowledge their divorce. She dies believing she is his only true wife. How did a princess who was once the most beloved queen in English history end up forgotten and forsaken? How did a marriage that began with so much hope collapse into one of the most famous divorces in history? This is the story of Catherine of Aragon, the princess who became queen, the queen who refused to bow. Catherine was born on December 16, 1485, in Alcalá de Henares, Spain. She was the youngest daughter of the most powerful monarchs in Europe, King Ferdinand II of Aragon, and Queen Isabella I of Castile. She was a princess of the Spanish Empire, the nation that had just united and was conquering the world. She was educated in Latin, theology, and diplomacy. She was trained to be a queen. In 1501, at just 15 years old, Catherine was sent to England to marry Prince Arthur, the heir to the English throne. It was a political alliance between two mighty dynasties. The marriage was brief. Arthur died just 5 months later, possibly from the sweating sickness that swept through England. Suddenly, Catherine was a widow. And worse, she was a political problem. King Henry VII didn't want to return her dowry to Spain. He decided to marry her to his second son, Prince Henry. But he delayed. And delayed. For 7 years, Catherine was kept in limbo. She lived as a virtual prisoner in London, struggling to support herself and her ladies. Finally, in 1509, Henry VII died. His 18-year-old son became King Henry VIII. And his first act was to marry Catherine. Henry was young, athletic, and handsome. Catherine was beautiful, intelligent, and educated. The nation rejoiced. It was a fairy tale wedding. A new era had begun. Catherine was an excellent queen. She was well-read, spoke several languages, and matched Henry's intellectual curiosity. She was also a capable regent. When Henry went to war in France in 1513, she ruled England in his name. She even rallied the troops and defeated the Scots at the Battle of Flodden, sending Henry the bloodied coat of the Scottish king. But there was one thing she could not give Henry: a son. Between 1510 and 1518, Catherine gave birth to 6 children. She had 2 sons, but both died in infancy. She suffered stillbirths and miscarriages. Only one child survived, a daughter named Mary, the future Queen Mary I. Henry wanted a son. He needed a son. Without a male heir, the Tudor dynasty was fragile. And Catherine, now in her late 30s, could no longer give him one. In 1527, Henry VIII made a decision that would change England forever. He wanted to annul his marriage to Catherine. He argued that because she had been married to his brother Arthur, their marriage was cursed by God. Henry's obsession was driven by a desire for a male heir, but also by a new passion, a woman named Anne Boleyn, one of Catherine's own ladies-in-waiting. Catherine refused to accept the annulment. She insisted that her marriage to Arthur had never been consummated. The marriage was valid in the eyes of God. She wrote to the Pope. She appealed to her nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. She fought back with intelligence and dignity. In 1529, the case went to trial at Blackfriars. It was one of the most dramatic scenes in English history. Catherine knelt before the legates and delivered a speech that moved the entire courtroom. She said, "I take God to witness that I have been to you a true and loyal wife." When the proceedings ended, Catherine walked out of the courtroom. She refused to return. The Pope, pressured by Catherine's nephew, refused to grant the annulment. Henry was furious. For 7 years, The Pope avoided making a decision. He was trapped between the English king and the Spanish emperor. Henry had had enough. In 1533, he broke with the Pope and declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England. He married Anne Boleyn in secret. Then, Archbishop Thomas Cranmer annulled Henry's marriage to Catherine. She was stripped of her title as queen and banished from court. Catherine was ordered to call herself the Dowager Princess of Wales, a title that denied her status as queen. She refused. She was Queen of England, and she would die as Queen of England. She never saw her daughter Mary again. Catherine was moved from castle to castle, each time further from London. Finally, she was sent to Kimbolton Castle in Huntingdonshire. She lived in near poverty. Her household was reduced to just a few loyal servants. She was cold, sick, and lonely. On January 7, 1536, Catherine knew she was dying. She wrote her final letter to Henry. She addressed him as, "My most dear lord and husband." She asked him to be kind to their daughter Mary. She wrote, "I forgive you everything. I desire you to love the daughter you have." She died that same day. She was 50 years old. Henry was at court, celebrating Anne Boleyn's pregnancy. The news was brought to him. Henry was reportedly relieved. Catherine was buried in Peterborough Cathedral. Henry refused to give her a royal funeral. She was buried as the Dowager Princess of Wales, the title she had always rejected. But Catherine won her final victory. The English people never forgot her. They loved her for her dignity, her courage, and her refusal to surrender. Catherine of Aragon was the only woman who ever defied Henry VIII and won. She lost her crown, her husband, and her freedom. But she never lost her dignity. She proved that a woman could stand against a king. She proved that honor was worth more than power. Her daughter Mary became Queen of England. And Catherine's refusal to accept the annulment paved the way for the English Reformation, a movement that would change the world. The forgotten queen is no longer forgotten.